All right, welcome back. I hope you're having a good day. This is one of my Portulacaria Afras, or I call them my little jade trees. A lot easier to say. A couple years before I got into the bonsai hobby, I actually started keeping a bunch of succulents. It's kind of like my gateway addiction into bonsai, I guess. But ports are succulents in that they don't really need watered as often as all of my normal trees. Even if you keep them in inorganic substrate, I actually water these maybe like 10 times a year, a couple times in the early spring when we don't get much rain and it starts getting really hot, and a couple times like in kind of like the late fall when it's still really hot out, but it kind of, the rainy season slows down a little. I think maybe if I watered them a little more through the winter, they'd probably grow a little bit better. But I do have them. I have them in two different areas. I kind of have them far away from my garden hose. I have the ones that I usually make my videos on and everything sitting on a pallet, kind of have them all separated. And then I have another group that's next to a cactus. And that's the group I just kind of realized that I've been neglecting for a little bit too long. I got in there today to kind of clean the cactus up a little bit. And what I do with these is I hate to kind of get around that cactus because it really is just kind of a, well, obviously you get thorns in your hands when you go trying to work around it and everything. So what I've been doing is I've just been kind of hedging off the tops and not even investigating to see what the rest of the plant looks like. And, just kind of running out of time to look at them and everything. This is kind of one I'm a little surprised that I keep over there. I think I probably keep it over there because the ones up on a pallet are kind of up in the wind a little bit, where down next to the cactus I can leave them down on the ground a little more, keep it grounded some, and this used to blow over on me every now and again. But I got a bunch of trees like this. I really don't want to talk the entire time. I don't want to do any time lapse or anything, but I'm just going to kind of clean them up a little bit. It's like 4 or 5, maybe 6 of them. I'm going to try to take out, some of them have these just ridiculous long looking shoots that just kind of shoot out of the side. And then a lot of them, and almost all of these, all have just everywhere where I've tried to keep a pad of some sort, a bunch of pieces of it that are just growing straight up. And then also, like up here, I've just been doing this. I'll probably do it again because these really got some small leaves kind of working up here. But then some of these pieces here that I've just been missing, and I'm just going to kind of pull them out. I said, don't really want to do time lapse or play music or anything. I don't really want to talk the whole time too. Maybe I'll put some like light background music on in the background. We'll see what happens as I edit the video. I will point out actually that all of these are grown from cuttings. I bought one group of 3. And the biggest trunk at that point was probably about as big as my thumb. I bought that probably around 2017. And everything else I've got is just cuttings from it. The original 3 are kind of like part of that palette that I keep separate from these. These are the all from cuttings here. Alright, then I got this little guy here. This little pot, I actually had a ficus tree in for a little while, and it kept getting blown over in the pot. And then even though it was growing okay in there, I could actually tell that it just really was affecting the health a little bit, keeping it in that small of a pot. And I was just kind of like, well, what am I going to do with this little guy? And then I just laid this, it's just a cutting I laid down in there long before I had the channel or anything else. I've never used it in a video of any sort. It really has kind of looked unhealthy for a while. It's the first time it's ever really looked like much. But now, sometimes I wonder why or what I was thinking even when I did that. And now that it's here, I kind of think, well, what am I going to do with it now? But I'll go ahead and prune it up some and just see what it looks like in the future. This has lots of leggy growth in some spots. All right, then there's this guy here. This one has a nice twisted up base on it and everything. Almost makes me think it might be one of the original 3. I know 2 of the originals are in the brown glazed pot that I do videos on from time to time. Not really all that sure about this one. I do have a couple more that are almost this thick. And reminding myself they all come from the cuttings from the same tree. It does make me kind of wonder, but it doesn't really matter all that much. This one, I don't know, I've kind of lost my direction with a little bit. At one point, I was thinking I'd try to make a cascade, and I was going to keep this here as just kind of like a sacrifice apex. The more and more I think about it, I think about cutting off the cascade. Like it was some kind of a sacrifice at one point. But for today, I'm just going to prune it up pretty hard and everything. If I do ever cut the apex or the cascade off, I would like to try to keep them as cuttings. And right now, I mean, I don't know, here in Florida I could probably take cuttings and get them to live right now, but we're actually supposed to get some nights in the 50s coming up like this week, towards the end of this week and everything. And I'd just rather, if I'm going to try to take cuttings, I'd rather save it for a time I know that they'll do much better. Up in the apex, it's surprising how much these elephant bushes will grow into each other like that. Well, they'll get their own crossing branches. Seems like some deciduous trees, ficus trees even, will not grow into themselves. They'll get some crossing branches here and there, but these succulents will, like I said, they'll grow right into each other, or into itself. Rather than hedging it off with my other scissors, I think I'm going to cut this one down a little bit lower with the better cutters here. This one and the next one I'm going to bring in probably some of the original cuttings I've ever taken, and that they're still in organic soil. And I stopped using organic soil a long time ago. I'd actually think about doing a major chop on this one, but maybe when I go to repot it, I can get like a different angle on it, and there could be some pieces of it I'd like to go ahead and hold on to rather than losing. But it definitely needs to be cleaned up some if I'm not going to chop off anything major. Got these long growths like that all over it and everything. And like I said, if it's one of the original cuttings, it's at least 4 years old. It's probably more like 5 or 6 years old. One chop I was considering was this one. It's got 2 branches coming out of that same spot. I was thinking about taking both of them out. And actually temporarily leaving this branch alive next to that chop scar will help that heal up. It'll just kind of glaze over and pop right off, and then I'll probably go ahead and just cut it the rest of the way off whenever I do repot it, which this one and the next one I bring in, I'm going to put on my mental list to repot pretty early in the spring. There we go. Still nothing special, but a little more organized than it was a few minutes ago. Alright, and then this is another one of the original ones, just in the original potting soil. I think I did this trying to prove to myself I could fuse the 2 cuttings together. I actually think they're fused, but now at this point I almost kind of punked myself because they'd sure look a lot better if they weren't together. Again, these will go on my list to repot this spring, so for right now I'm just going to try to get it to make a little bit of sense. The biggest branch, sometimes when these things take off for the summer, they'll get one long straight branch. This one came right up through this other side from here. So I'm going to pluck that whole thing off. Several years ago, that would have been big enough to try to get a cutting off of, and I still could, but I don't need any more ports. This one also has some long shoots. I hate to take too much of it down. This is going to be an ugly duckling when I'm done with it for today. Hopefully it'll grow back into itself here a little bit. It's a good example of what I was talking about when I say I was pruning, like kind of hedging them off, how small they get like that. I'll have to keep that in mind. I've got a couple out there that I'd like to go ahead and set that have like branches where I want them and everything. And if I started like really, you know, paying attention to pruning it like that, I'd get some really nice canopies out of them. They do get some wild growth, just kind of every which way sometimes. But one of the reasons I like them so much is it's all just been free material. And they could take a ton of neglect. And we'll see what that looks like when I go to repot it. Alright, this is another one of the originals. This is still in organic soil. Thank goodness. At a little bit of a better angle than some of the other ones were. I do remember even at that point, I still do it today. I do it with ficus cuttings all the time where I lean them on the side of the pot so they'll stay still until they take. And then once I see them start taking a little bit, I'll try to straighten it up, just, you know, just some as it goes and everything. Definitely has some crazy growth on it. Go ahead and before I do any hedging off, take off the long ones I know have to go, like the entire thing. And then that one too. And then just and just depending on the health of how these guys are, I might save this one for the last repot. It's kind of doing the best out of those, out of the group there that was still in the original organic soil I used to use. Not the best shape, but it definitely, you know, it definitely doesn't have a very well organized shape, but at the same time, it's healthy looking, so we'll see what happens. And surprisingly enough, this one's in some original soil too. I really didn't know that just from looking at it. Pot seems nice and clean. The other ones get all that algae on there and everything. This one has successfully gotten pretty thick. I think one of the reasons why I left this bottom branch on there is try to create some taper with it. And I still think I'll leave that on there.
Prune off some of this straight up growth. A couple other little long straight ones.
And again, really healthy considering that it's in that original organic soil. And we'll see how time treats that. And yet another one still in that organic soil. I do believe I've been working this one a little more than some of the others, but it was in that group. And it could use like a little prune. I don't know if you guys can see or not. There was a spot there that had been chopped at some point. Thinking I might have even had this included in one of my videos at some point too. And then somehow or another it still made it over to my neglection area. You know, nothing like a bunch of free material to play around with.